There's nothing to celebrate. It is like taking a football team to go and compete against another, and the referee and the linesmen are all members of the opposing team, and you win and you celebrate. That's not winning. No. You win if the elections are free and fair. For as long as the elections are being managed by cadres of a particular political party which is competing in that election, it's not fair and it's not free.
How do you explain the victory?
The outcome is not necessarily a reflection of the will of the people. In Petauke, the numbers you saw are just a fraction of the numbers you should have seen hadn't it been for Mwangala Zalomis and the cadres at ECZ. Had that ECZ been free and fair, the numbers would have been totally different, because we trounced UPND to the ground. Everywhere you go, and sensitive to the mood of people. You can tell, when you go out, you can tell the mood of the people. In Petauke, if there were people who were saying we're going to vote for UPND, wherever Tonse appeared, they would say, you know, we cannot vote for this party. Yamene hata mangisa MP watu stizi wakutaenda kuti. People were singing there. No JJ, no vote. And then we go and see this small margin. And when my friends were celebrating, I told them, be careful. The only reason why we won is because the people of Petauke, youths of Petauke, following the spirit of their former member of parliament and the spirit of their current member of parliament, two young dynamic people stood up and they said, Petauke, you will steal, but not to the extent that you are stealing elsewhere. That's how we survived Bwana. Hadn't it been for that, we would have also lost Petauke the same way we lost Pambashi, the same way we lost Kawambwa. You saw what happened in Kawambwa. Huh? In Kawambwa, being chased from polling stations. And when I talk about cadres, I'm even making a mistake, because even leaders of Tonse were chased from polling stations. You saw how Peter Chanda, president of NCP, president of the party on who we had a candidate, how he was being chased around. You saw how Sean Tembo was hacked in the presence of the police at a police station on the voting day. And you expect us to accept and say these are free and fair elections? No. I can repeat this. For as long as Hagainde Hijirema and the UPND keep cadres at ECZ, Zambia elections. And I'll also use the term you used, perception. Remember that for any election to be free and fair, the people must accept it even before it happens. And the perception here is that Hagainde put his people there. For what purpose? To skew the table against the opposition.
It is important that you've used the word perception, because that qualifies the fact that government has dispelled these claims, but the Electoral Commission of Zambia also have said and tried to the extent to demonstrate that they are an autonomous body. But this drives me towards a different aspect of our interview today.
Let me ask a question.
I'm not going to answer any questions
but I would
today.
Like I'll ask so that the viewers can answer. You may not have to answer it. Let the viewers answer this question. How autonomous is the ECs when they are not even amenable to the rulings of the court? And don't answer. Let the viewers answer. How could this ECZ be considered to be a neutral arbiter of elections when they can go against a ruling of the court, when the court said these elections must not be held? And yet they say, to hell with the decision of the court, we're proceeding. If there is an institution of governance which is not amenable to the decision of the judiciary, then you should know that. Of
this interview, and I want us to talk about the economy. Just yesterday, the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, released the BNNB, which is the Basic Nutrition Needs Basket. which has indicated an increase of about 700 kwacha, family of 5, and it's around 11,000 kwacha now that it costs, for a family to survive a month. What do you make of this as the Patriotic Front? And I would like to find out from you where things have gone wrong for the country and what to do to get out of it.
A number of very important issues, and thank you for raising this question. It is a more progressive question than talking about the coup. The coup occurred, and the party is still solid, it's moving on. But these are matters that affect the Zambian people on a daily basis. Number one, no country can survive only on personal tax, on pay as you earn. No. There's no country in the world that survives only on revenues from taxing its citizens from their incomes, from their salary. Every economy survives on the extraction of resources. Zambia, as your viewers know, is one of the largest producers of copper, the 10th if I'm not mistaken. And yet, records are there to show we have now become the 6th poorest country in the world. Why is that? This is something that we in the Patriotic Front recognized soon after winning elections in 2011. You recall what President Michael Sata did. He said there is no way that you can continue to be extracting precious metals and you go and auction them in India. We'll be auctioning them in Zambia. Let those people who are interested in our minerals come and participate in the auction in Zambia, because the 3 days they stay in Zambia, they boost our tourism revenues. The 3 days they stay in Zambia, we can collect money from them. And when they buy, we know the value at which they have bought, so we can tax them properly. We also decided that we're going to introduce mineral royalty tax to continue with what Mwanawasa had done. That the mining companies, all of them being foreign owned, would not be honest to us. They are in business to make money for themselves. None of them goes into business to make money for the government. No, they make money for themselves. And they'll find ways and means of ensuring that they evade paying new tax. The so-called forward pricing, for instance, is all a mechanism to make sure that they extract your copper here, send it as a raw mineral to another, and that is where the profits are made. And you taxing here, nothing. We decided, let's ensure that there is mineral royalty tax. And we started to collect money, which money we were using to subsidize fuel, to subsidize electricity, to subsidize agriculture. What did these people do when they came into office? They decided that they would do away with mineral royalty tax. And I'm sure that if you bring somebody from government or from UPND, they will come and say that what I'm saying is not true because they are collecting mineral royalty tax. But the truth of the matter, sir, is that they are collecting mineral royalty tax and they are making it tax deductible. Meaning you pay the mineral royalty tax, but when it comes for you to pay company tax or corporate tax, you deduct that which you paid as mineral royalty. If the corporate tax is 10 kwacha, but you paid 3 kwacha mineral royalty, you deduct the 3 kwacha from the corporate tax. That is making it free. Now, you heard recently, only 2 weeks ago, they decided to even suspend the 15% tax duty on the export of precious metals. How do you expect the economy to grow? The major earner of government revenue is pay as you earn. Now, can you imagine their argument is that with this 15% duty on precious metals, the market is too small and our local miners cannot sell. Huh? Now, what sense does it make for you to extract your emeralds, export them so that they are cheap outside the borders of Zambia, and yet there's no revenue coming into Zambia. And your argument is that this miner is employing 10 people.
Well, I don't think that the argument is that there's no revenue, and it's not accurate that there's no revenue coming into the country. There's several taxes that have to be paid nonetheless by these mining companies. But the rationale is that these, especially when we talk about the precious metals and the precious stones, there was a halt by these large precious stone mining companies in terms of them exporting, because they argued that this tax was making it extremely expensive for them to operate, for them to do business, and they had to seek government's indulgence to have a win-win situation, to save jobs, but also have some form of revenue, as opposed to these precious stones just sitting there at loggerheads trying to find a way forward.
I'm sure your viewers remember that there was a time when some mines, one of them is the one that they are boasting about, that 6 presidents before them failed to open, and now they have opened it. Such mines were closed for one reason: the international price of copper was low and they couldn't make profit. Okay? We did not say continue extracting the copper anyway. No, they said stop it. So national price of the precious metals is, we have them because we have the maize. It doesn't make sense. But you sell your product at a time when it gives you the best benefit, the highest return. And the minerals will not go to waste. You can leave them in the ground. If the prices now are too low, leave them in the ground. The United States of America is not extracting its oil now. They are waiting for the reserves in Saudi Arabia, for the reserves in Middle East to dwindle, so that the prices of fuel increase. That's when they'll start extracting their oil. That is what real governors do. But you don't go and sell your product for a song just because you have it.
Isn't governance and leadership also multifaceted, putting into consideration the ramifications of such decisions, like people losing their jobs? Because it is not just the large corporates in the mining sector, it is also the artisanal miners that have been complaining. I mean, just last week I was having an interview and asking these questions you're asking to the Emeralds Association of Zambia, and they were saying that their members were opposed to this tax simply because of the cost of doing business, and it is not that they are not paying tax, they are just not for the idea of paying the 15% export tax.
Sir, you are saying to me that I would expect that the miners and the employees of those miners would agree with me that please don't export these minerals without paying tax to the Zambian people? No, they're the direct beneficiaries. They're the ones who are benefiting. But the question is, what are the numbers? How many people are affected by that decision compared to the population? Remember that the resource endowment that we have in this country is not only for the miners, it is for the whole country. If that resource endowment does not make it possible for people to have 3 square meals a day because they are losing tax, then forget it. Forget it. This is not as though this is a private resource. This is a national resource which should benefit every Zambian. You and I have an equal stake in those minerals, even if we don't live in the areas where those minerals are being mined. But even beyond that, the people in the area, in the vicinity of where the precious minerals are being mined, ask their lives. Are you sure that their lives are any better? That they have reduced mineral royalty, that they have reduced mineral tax, duty on precious minerals? No. So you should look at these resources in the broader context. Yes, how many people are employed by the mines compared to the number of people who are employed in the agriculture sector? Why is it that you're not providing equal incentives to the agriculture sector as you're providing to the mining? Tell me how many people in Zambia are employed as real estate agents, as employed as keepers of people's homes, employed in the hotel industry. And yet, Is anybody even listening to the plight of property owners when they have increased the rental tax? When it comes to overtaxing Zambians, nobody speaks about it, because Zambians must be subjected to paying heavy tax.
But some of these miners are Zambians.
Can you imagine a person owning a small house in Kanyama? They put their house on rent. They have to pay 16% VAT on that house, and they have to pay 16% person and leaving this miner, even if it's a Zambian or not, it is not right that they can extract our minerals and export them without any revenue coming to the country. That is not right.
You've attributed the economic challenges and the high cost of living that the country is experiencing so far in this interview to taxation, but you've also talked about government policies towards the mining sector. But there's also an argument that government has advanced, and it's that the last 2 years, the last year has not been easy for the country. The country experienced one of its worst droughts with significant evidence, and this has impacted generation of electricity, a major driver of economic growth being energy. Shouldn't this also be brought into the picture, that there is an unusual occurrence here that has left the economy crippled due to the low production of electricity?
Had the government been thinking the way you're thinking, they would have been saying things different from how you're saying them and asking different questions, because the issue is knowing that they have this natural disaster, the drought, which has impacted negatively, not only on government revenue, but negatively, especially on the lives of people. What could the government have done? They would not have been allowing the productive sector, the mining sector, to be doing what they were doing. They would have ensured that they are going to earn revenue from there to subsidize the suffering masses, the people who have lost their livelihood because of the drought. But what do we see? They are ignoring these people who have been facing the calamities of the natural drought and allowing the miners to exploit the mineral resources without any revenue going into the country, without any support to those vulnerable people. That is the problem we have. And lest people are misled, this is not the first time that Zambia has faced a drought. No, Zambia has faced several droughts in the past. Okay? But we've managed. We were resilient enough. We didn't have the calamity of being the 6th poorest country in the world. And talking of which, the report has also shown that the iniquity in Zambia is extremely high. Okay? Very few people, the mine owners, are the ones who have the money. The majority of Zambians are living on less than $2 a day. But what is even worse, my dear friend, is that we were made to vote. 2.8 million people were made to vote for a government that promised us that no matter what happens, when you vote for us, we already have pledges, $25 billion. My friends have already pledged $25 billion. When you vote for me, $25 billion will come into the economy. When you vote for me at 10 o'clock, at 14 hours, the dollar will be 10 kwacha to the dollar. When you vote for me, meal prices will go down to 50 kwacha. Huh? This is the basis on which they were elected. For them to turn around 1 year along the line and say, because of this drought, we cannot deliver. No, that is immoral.
What do you think about the UPND members of parliament and some members of the Patriotic Front, in fact, and some independent members of parliament walking away just last week when Honorable Mutotwe Kafuaya was moving a motion to debate the cost of living? They say that this was inconsequential, but they also did not want to be limited by a short time to debate this issue, and would have much appreciated a different way in which it was presented before Parliament, so that they have enough time to explain to the citizens. What is your assessment of this?
The practice of walking out of Parliament is an acceptable practice in all Commonwealth parliaments. However, the walkout is always only when the presiding officer is the one who is in the wrong. That's when walkout makes sense. Not as a result of a matter that is being debated. No. The PF members of Parliament walked out of Parliament on 4 occasions during this Parliament. And if you look at Hansard, it will show you that every single time when they walked out, they were protesting against the decision of the presiding officer, not against government. No. Even when UPND was in opposition, they walked out on several occasions when they found that the presiding officer was not paying attention to their plight. It is the very first time in the history of the Zambian parliament that cabinet ministers and members of the ruling party walk out of parliament, not because of the decision of the presiding officer, but because of a debate, because of a motion. That's dereliction of duty. And I and others who think like me are waiting to see what the presiding officers will do to those members of parliament who walked out of parliament and by so doing curtailed a debate. Because remember, the Constitution provides functions of Parliament. One of the functions is to appropriate funds for the development of the country. The Constitution does not say that the appropriation of funds shall be following a motion presented by government. No, it just says appropriation of funds, meaning that a private member can raise a motion for debate, and through that motion that is presented by a private member, the government can then appropriate funds. So what they did that day was dereliction of duty, and it's supposed to be punished.
But they argue that, not just their argument, it is in fact one of their rights. I mean, I know that you argue that history has shown that it is normally against the presiding officer, but it's not the only time that they can walk out. They can walk out as them exercising their democratic rights. So do you think that's enough? You could disagree with them, but do you think that's enough reason for them to face punitive action?
They don't have a right to walk out of Parliament on a motion. No. They don't have that right. They have a right to protest against a decision of the presiding officer, yes. But they have no right to walk out of Parliament against a motion that has been approved by Parliament. No, they have no right. They have no right.
Finally, in our interview today, still talking about Parliament, the National Assembly, the leadership of the National Assembly had instructed the Minister of Health to issue a statement on the health of former President Edgar Lungu and on former Minister of Finance, who is also leader of the FDD, Edith Nawakwi. The minister came back and issued a statement and said that the two leaders deserve their right to privacy, and therefore there was no need to have such a disclosure. Are you happy that the minister took such a decision, and have you considered it an objective decision that you applaud?
There's nothing to be happy about. First of all, even just the point of order was absurd. It was wrong. And for the presiding officer to even instruct the minister to come to Parliament and come and discuss the health status of an individual is wrong. Totally wrong. And on that occasion, had cabinet ministers stood up to say, no, we will not allow that point of order, they would have been right, because that's a wrong decision of the presiding officer. Even your access to information law provides that private matters of such nature cannot be brought to the public without the consent of the affected person. So there's nothing to be happy about. There's everything to be sad about. That we can have members of parliament who don't understand the basics about privacy. It's sad to see that we have a presiding officer who can gloss over such important private matters and say, yes, I'm directing you. There's nothing to be happy about. So whether Muchima went there and said whatever he said is not an issue. For me, it is sad that we have a member of parliament who doesn't understand the virtue and the doctrine of privacy. And we have a presiding officer who also equally doesn't understand. That is what makes me sad. Then who is governing us? Are we being governed by people who know what it means to govern? No, we're turning ourselves into a laughingstock. Just before that, you remember what was happening? We heard the minister saying, whoever questions the health of the president. Now, see the difference? Head of state, president, state property, paid for, fed every single day by the state. When people are asking, we don't see our president, what is his state of health? What is his state of being? What were we told? Stop it, it's treason. It's treason to question the health of a head of state? No. It is not allowed to question the health of a private person in an institution such as parliament. But there is everything right for the Zambians to ask about the health of their president. They have every right. You saw what happened with the Levi Mwanawasa. You saw what happened with Michael Sata. It was made public because they were holding public office. They are property for the period for which they are president. They are property of Zambia. But Edith Nawakwi, being a president of a political party, is not public property. Edgar Chagwalungu, being former president, is not public property. Especially that, as you are well aware, he is not even receiving the benefits of office of former president.
Well, it looks like government agrees with you based on the minister's statement. They seem to agree with you that those are private citizens.
I'm drawing parallels, sir. I'm drawing parallels. When you question the health of President Hakainde, who is incumbent, who is being fed by the state, it's treason. But a member of parliament can be allowed to go and ask parliament, please, can you bring us the record of the health of Nawak?
And government disagrees with that.
And parliament agrees.
No. Government did not
Parliament agreed.
But the minister...
No, I'm saying parliament. I didn't say minister.
But the minister is part of the cabinet.
I didn't say minister.
The minister is part of the cabinet of President Hakainde.
I'm saying parliament, sir. I didn't say cabinet. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say cabinet agreed. I said parliament agreed. And I also answered you earlier that the position taken by government over the matter does not make me any happy at all. It is not as though they were doing something that is extraordinary. No, they were doing the obvious. You cannot discuss the health of a private person in parliament. Should I be happy that they came to say that? It's too obvious. It doesn't require any accolades from me, no. But what makes me sad is that the institution of parliament can be used to even raise the question and for the presiding officer to even instruct. That is what makes me sad. I hope I've answered the questions. I have not said cabinet approved, no. I said parliament approved. And by the way, talking about parliament, I hear people now even getting scared just to talk about what is happening in parliament. Why? In a democracy such as ours, why? The Constitution of the Republic of Zambia in Part 6 says very clearly, Article 88, it states very clearly that members of the public are at liberty to comment on decisions, on statements, and any matters that are in parliament. So people can talk and say that presiding officer was wrong. They must say it openly. They must not fear reprimand. They must not fear that, no, the police will come and arrest you like they arrested Lubinda. No. The Constitution provides that citizens can comment on decisions made in Parliament. And that decision that was made, that the minister must come and discuss the health status of President Nawako and President Edgar Lungu, is wrong.
Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of This Day.
Thank you very, very much for having me, and I look forward to you inviting me so that we can spend time talking about the country and talking about the economy and where we're going, especially towards 2026 elections, and not spending time on the coup. That coup was a failed coup, and it belongs to the archives. The PF still continues, and the PF shall have a candidate in 2026.
As much as you are probably tired of talking about this, I think it is in the public interest, and at least we've talked about it today.
the public know everything about it. That was a failed coup d'etat.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of This.
It's very nice having me on your program.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to JQ News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates on tech, politics, and everything in between. Until next time, stay cool.